Have you ever had that moment when your entire world crashes down in 3 seconds? When everything you believed about your life turns into a lie. I'm Serafina Collins, 28 years old, and I thought I had it all figured out. Marketing executive at a top Denver firm, beautiful house in the suburbs, and a husband I trusted with my life. But trust? That's a funny thing. It can disappear faster than you can say, I do. It was a Tuesday morning when I decided to wash the white towels. You know those fancy Egyptian cotton ones we got for our wedding? The ones Blake insisted we keep pristine and separate from everything else? Well, I grabbed them from the linen closet and tossed them in the machine. That's when I saw it. Red lipstick. Bright, unmistakable red lipstick smeared across the corner of one towel. The same shade I'd never worn in my life because Blake always said it made me look cheap. My hands started shaking as I held that towel up to the light. The stain wasn't old. It was fresh. Recent. Maybe from last night when Blake came home late, claiming he'd been at the office working on the Henderson project. Have you ever felt your heart stop beating? That's what happened to me in that moment. Because I knew. Deep down in my gut, I knew exactly what that lipstick meant. I heard the garage door opening. Blake was home early, and I was standing there holding the proof of his betrayal in my trembling hands. The front door clicked open just as I shoved the towel behind my back. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure Blake could hear it from the hallway. Sarah? You home, babe? His voice floated through the house like it always did. Casual. Loving. Fake. In the laundry room, I called back, surprised my voice sounded normal. I quickly stuffed the stained towel into a basket and started the washing machine like nothing happened. Blake appeared in the doorway, still wearing his expensive gray suit. The same one he'd worn yesterday when he supposedly worked late. He looked tired, but there was something else in his eyes. Guilt? Or was I just seeing things now that I knew the truth? How was your day, beautiful? He kissed my forehead, and for a split second, I wanted to believe this was all a mistake. That somehow that lipstick had gotten there by accident. But lipstick doesn't accidentally end up on towels hidden in linen closets. Fine. I managed. How is yours? The Henderson project keeping you busy? Something flickered across his face. So quick I almost missed it. Yeah, you know how it is. Deadlines and all that. I nodded and smiled. The perfect supportive wife. But inside, my mind was racing. How long had this been going on? Who was she? Did she know about me? Later that evening, while Blake showered, I did something I'd never done before. I went through his wallet. Credit card receipts. Gas stations. Restaurants I'd never been to. And then, tucked behind his driver's license, I found it. A hotel keycard from the Marriott downtown. From 3 days ago. The Marriott was a 15-minute drive from our house. I sat in the parking lot the next morning, staring at the building that had shattered my marriage. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Inside, I walked up to the front desk like I belonged there. Hi, I'm trying to reach my husband. Blake Collins? He stayed here a few nights ago and left his watch behind. The young clerk typed on her computer. Oh yes, Mr. Collins. Room 412. But that reservation was actually under the name Vivian Sterling. Would you like me to call up to the room? Vivian Sterling. The name hit me like a punch to the stomach. I knew that name. Blake's coworker from the marketing department. The tall brunette with a perfect smile who always laughed too loud at Blake's jokes during company parties. No, that's okay, I whispered. I'll catch up with them later. I stumbled back to my car and sat there for 20 minutes, trying to process what I'd just learned. 8 months. That's how long Vivian Sterling had been working at Blake's company. 8 months of shared projects, late nights at the office, and business trips I never questioned. My phone buzzed. A text from Blake. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Love. What a joke. I drove to Blake's office building and parked across the street. At 6:30 p.m., I watched him walk out with her. Vivian Sterling. She was laughing at something he said, her hand touching his arm in that casual way that meant everything. They got into Blake's car together. My husband's car. The one I helped him pick out for his birthday last year. I followed them to a small Italian restaurant on the other side of town. Through the window, I watched them share pasta and wine like they were celebrating something special. Blake reached across the table and took her hand, the same way he used to hold mine. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when she placed his hand on her stomach and smiled. She was pregnant. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember walking through the front door or collapsing on the living room floor. All I remember is the sound that came out of me. A wail so deep and broken it didn't sound human. Pregnant. She was pregnant with my husband's baby. Have you ever wanted something so badly it physically hurt? For 3 years, Blake and I had been trying to have children. 3 years of negative pregnancy tests, doctor appointments, and false hope. 2 miscarriages that left me questioning if something was wrong with me. All those times Blake held me while I cried, telling me we'd keep trying. That it would happen when it was meant to happen. That he didn't care if we never had kids as long as we had each other. Lies. All of it. Lies. While I was struggling with infertility, he was out there creating life with someone else. While I was blaming my body for failing me, he was planning a future with another woman. I called in sick to work and spent the entire next day in bed, staring at the ceiling. Our wedding photos lined the dresser across from me. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of what I thought was happiness. In one picture, Blake was spinning me around in my white dress, both of us laughing like we didn't have a care in the world. In another, we were cutting the cake, his hand over mine on the knife. We looked so young, so naive, so stupidly in love. My phone rang around noon. The caller ID showed Margot's name. My best friend since college, the maid of honor at my wedding, the only person who'd been there through every miscarriage and every disappointment. Sarah? Her voice was careful, like she was afraid I might break. I need to tell you something about Blake. I know about the affair, I said before Margot could finish her sentence. Silence on the other end of the phone. Then, oh honey, I'm so sorry. How did you find out? The towels. And then I followed them. She's pregnant, Margot. Another silence. Longer this time. When Margot finally spoke, her voice was full of guilt. I've known for 2 months. The words hit me like a slap. What? I saw them together at that new sushi place downtown. They were all over each other. I wanted to tell you, Sarah, but I didn't know how. I kept hoping it would end on its own. 2 months. My best friend had known for 2 months and said nothing. Who else knows? I asked. I don't know. Maybe some people at his office. I think they've been pretty careful, but office gossip spreads fast. I felt nauseous. How many people had been watching me play the clueless wife while my husband paraded around town with his pregnant girlfriend? There's more, Margot said quietly. I hired a private investigator friend of mine to look into it, just to get you some proof for when you're ready to leave him. And Blake's been moving money, Sarah. Large amounts. From your joint savings account into a separate account you don't have access to. Over $40,000 in the past 6 months. My vision went blurry. Our savings. The money we'd been putting aside for fertility treatments. The money we'd saved for the house renovation. The emergency fund we'd built together over 5 years of marriage. He'd stolen it. Stolen our future to fund his affair. I'm coming over, Margot said. We need to talk about what you're going to do next. An hour later, Margot sat at my kitchen table with a manila folder full of photographs and bank statements. Evidence of my husband's double life spread across the surface, where we'd eaten breakfast together just that morning. The investigator found something else, Margot said, sliding a bank statement across the table. Blake put down a deposit on an apartment. A 2-bedroom place in Cherry Creek. I stared at the numbers. A 2-bedroom apartment. 1 room for Blake and Vivian. 1 room for their baby. He'd been planning his exit strategy, while I planned our future. But then Margot showed me something that changed everything. Divorce papers. Already drawn up and ready to file. Hidden in Blake's desk drawer at work. He wasn't just leaving me. He was planning to blindside me completely. Ever wonder how much money it takes to destroy a marriage? Turns out, it's exactly $67,000. That's how much Blake had stolen from our accounts. Not just the savings I knew about. Our retirement fund. The money market account my grandmother left me. Even the emergency fund we promised we'd never touch. Margot's investigator had done his homework. Bank statements, wire transfers, credit card bills, all spread across my kitchen table like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. Look at this. Margot pointed to a credit card statement. Tiffany and Company. $3,000. 2 weeks ago. My stomach twisted. Blake had never bought me anything from Tiffany. Said it was overpriced garbage for show-offs. And this. Another receipt. Victoria's Secret. $500. Same day. I knew my husband's spending habits. Blake bought his underwear at Target and thought anything over $20 was highway robbery. But apparently pregnant mistresses had different standards. There's more, Margot said quietly. She slid another document across the table. He took out a loan against the house. $50,000. Without your signature. My hands started shaking. That's impossible. You need both signatures for that. Not if you forge one. The room started spinning. Our house. The home we'd built together, painted together, filled with memories of what I thought was a happy marriage. He'd used it as collateral for his affair. How is this even legal? I whispered. It's not. That's fraud, Sarah. This isn't just cheating anymore. This is criminal. I stared at the forged signature. It looked exactly like mine. How long had he been planning this? How many times had he practiced writing my name while I slept beside him, trusting him completely? My phone buzzed. A text from Blake. Hey babe, need to work this weekend. Big client meeting Monday. More lies. But this time, I knew exactly where he'd be. At the apartment he'd bought with my inheritance money. Monday morning, I walked into the law offices of Washington and Associates feeling like I was about to jump off a cliff. The lawyer Margot recommended, Cordelia Washington, was exactly what I needed, sharp, no nonsense, and according to her website, she specialized in high-conflict divorces involving financial misconduct. Perfect. Mrs. Collins, Cordelia shook my hand with a grip that could crush walnuts. I've reviewed the documents your friend sent over. We need to move fast. Have you ever sat in a lawyer's office planning the end of your marriage? It's nothing like the movies. There's no dramatic music, no passionate speeches about justice. Just cold, hard facts and strategy. The forgery changes everything, Cordelia explained. This isn't just adultery. It's wire fraud, identity theft, and potentially more. We can freeze the accounts, file criminal charges, and make sure he can't touch another penny of your money. She spread out papers across her mahogany desk. But we need to be smart about this. If we tip him off too early, he might hide more assets or flee. What do you suggest? We gather more evidence first. Document everything. Then we strike hard and fast. Her eyes gleamed like a predator who'd spotted wounded prey. By the time we're done, he'll wish he'd never heard your name. For the first time in days, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt powerful. There's something else, I said. His company is having their annual gala this Friday. Vivian will be there. Cordelia raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Blake doesn't know that I know. What if I showed up? Played the loving wife one last time while we gathered intel? Risky, but potentially very rewarding. She leaned back in her chair. What did you have in mind? I smiled for the first time in a week. I think it's time I met my husband's boss. The grand ballroom at the downtown Hilton was packed with Denver's business elite. I stood in the doorway, wearing the black cocktail dress Blake had bought me for last year's gala. My hair done exactly the way he liked it, playing the perfect corporate wife one final time. But tonight was different. Tonight, I wasn't here to smile and make small talk. I was here to destroy him. Blake spotted me immediately. The look of panic that flashed across his face was almost worth the price of admission. Sarah? He rushed over, his voice just a little too loud, a little too cheerful. What are you doing here? I thought you had that work thing tonight. I never had a work thing. He was confusing his lies. It got canceled, I said sweetly. So, I thought I'd surprise my wonderful husband. Over Blake's shoulder, I saw her. Vivian Sterling stood by the bar in a navy blue dress that did nothing to hide her growing belly. She was beautiful. I'd give her that. The kind of woman who looked like she belonged at fancy parties and expensive restaurants. The kind of woman Blake apparently preferred over his wife. "Let me get you a drink," Blake said quickly, trying to steer me away from the bar. Away from her. But I had other plans. "Actually, honey, I'd love to meet some of your colleagues. Especially that woman over there, Vivian, right? You've mentioned her work on the Henderson Project." Blake's face went white. "I don't think." "Blake Collins." A booming voice interrupted us. Mr. Blackwood, Blake's boss, appeared with a gin and tonic in one hand and a cigar in the other. "And the lovely Serafina. How are you, my dear?" "Wonderful, Mr. Blackwood. Just wonderful." I smiled my brightest smile. I was just telling Blake how proud I am of all his hard work lately. All those late nights at the office really show his dedication. Something shifted in Mr. Blackwood's expression. "Late nights." "Oh yes," I continued innocently. "Sometimes he doesn't get home until after midnight. The Henderson Project has been keeping him so busy." Mr. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "That's interesting, Serafina. The Henderson Project was completed 6 weeks ago." Blake looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Mr. Blackwood." A security guard appeared at his elbow. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation that requires your immediate attention. Something about the police wanting to speak with you." The police wanted to speak with Mr. Blackwood about financial irregularities in the Henderson Project account. Irregularities that led directly back to Blake's expense reports and client entertainment budget. I watched from across the ballroom as Blake was escorted to a private conference room along with 2 detectives and the company's head of security. His career was imploding in real time, and he had no idea I was the one who'd lit the fuse. You see, Cordelia Washington didn't just practice divorce law. She had connections everywhere, including the district attorney's office. When we'd discovered Blake's forgery and financial crimes, she'd made a few phone calls. "Mrs. Collins?" A voice behind me made me turn. It was Vivian Sterling, and she looked terrified. "Ms. Sterling." I kept my voice perfectly calm. "Enjoying the party?" Her hand moved protectively to her stomach. "I think we need to talk." "Do we?" "Please." Her voice cracked. "Can we go somewhere private?" We found an empty conference room down the hall from where Blake was getting interrogated. Vivian closed the door and leaned against it like she was afraid I might bolt. "I know you know," she said simply. "Know what?" I wasn't going to make this easy for her. "About Blake and me. About the baby." Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "But you have to understand, I didn't know he was married when this started. That stopped me cold." "What?" "He told me he was divorced. Said it was recent and messy, but that it was over." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "I didn't find out about you until 3 months ago." My head was spinning. 3 months ago? "I saw your wedding picture on his desk. When I asked about it, he said it was old from before the divorce. But something didn't feel right, so I did some research." She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. "You're not divorced, are you?" "No," I whispered. "We're very much married." Vivian sank into a chair. God, I'm such an idiot. I should have known. All those nights he couldn't stay over, the way he never wanted to be seen together in public. I thought he was just being cautious because we worked together. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "The baby?" I said. "Is it really his?" She nodded miserably. "Due in November." He seemed so happy when I told him. Started talking about getting a bigger place, planning for the future. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "But there's something else. Something I found out today that changes everything." My blood ran cold. "What?" "Blake's been seeing someone else. A third woman. I have proof." The proof was a hotel receipt Vivian had found in Blake's jacket pocket. The same jacket he'd worn to our anniversary dinner 2 weeks ago. The Ritz-Carlton. Presidential suite. A 3-night stay that happened while I thought he was on a business trip to Chicago. But the name on the reservation wasn't Blake's. It was someone called David Martinez, Blake's middle name and his mother's maiden name. I confronted him about it yesterday. Vivian said, her voice barely above a whisper. He denied everything at first, but then he broke down and admitted it. Her name is Autumn. She's 22 and works at that new boutique downtown.
22.
A child, basically. I stared at the hotel receipt, my hands trembling with rage. How long?
6 months, he said.
Maybe longer. Vivian wiped her eyes again. Serafina, I know you have every right to hate me, but I need you to know I never wanted this. Any of it. When I found out about you, I told him he needed to choose. Either leave his wife or end things with me. And he said he was planning to divorce you, that he just needed time to figure out the financial stuff. She let out a bitter laugh. I actually believed him. I thought I was helping him transition to a new life. The irony was almost too much. While I'd been planning Blake's destruction, Vivian had been planning their future together. And all the while, Blake had been playing both of us, while seeing a third woman on the side. There's more, Vivian said quietly. Autumn doesn't know about either of us. Blake told her he was single. Never married, no girlfriend. She thinks she's his one and only. 3 women. 3 elaborate lies. How had I been married to this man for 5 years and never seen what he really was? What are we going to do? Vivian asked. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Blake. Emergency at work. Won't be home tonight. Love you. I showed Vivian the message. She checked her phone and held it up. The same text, word for word, except hers said emergency with wife stuff instead of work. We stared at each other across the conference table. 2 women who'd been played by the same man, sitting in the same hotel where his career was ending, reading the same lies on our phones. I have an idea, I said slowly. But you're not going to like it. Try me. We're going to pay Blake a surprise visit. Tonight. All 3 of us. Vivian's eyes widened. All 3. I was already dialing information. Does Autumn work tomorrow? Because if she does, I think it's time she learned the truth about her boyfriend. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Vivian Sterling smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman who just realized she had nothing left to lose. The same smile I'd been wearing all week. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to watch your entire world crumble in slow motion? That's exactly what happened when Autumn Martinez opened her apartment door and saw 3 women standing in her hallway. She was everything I wasn't. Young, blonde, with that kind of effortless beauty that comes from never having your heart broken. The kind of girl who probably still believed in fairy tales and happily ever after. Are you Autumn? I asked. Yes. Her voice was small, confused. Can I help you? We're here about Blake, Vivian said. Blake Collins. The color drained from Autumn's face. Is he okay? Did something happen? You could say that, I replied. Mind if we come in? We have a lot to talk about. Autumn's apartment was exactly what you'd expect from a 22-year-old. Cute furniture from Target, inspirational quotes on the walls, photos of her with friends at bars and concerts. And there, on her kitchen counter, was a framed picture of her and Blake at some fancy restaurant. The same restaurant he'd taken me to for our anniversary. I'm Serafina, I said, settling onto her couch. Blake's wife. Autumn's coffee mug slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. His what? Wife. Of 5 years. I pulled out my phone and showed her our wedding photos. And this is Vivian. Blake's pregnant girlfriend. Autumn looked between us like we were speaking a foreign language. That's impossible. Blake's single. He told me he's never been married. He told me he was divorced. Vivian said quietly. Told me you didn't exist. And he told me both of you didn't exist, I added. Looks like Blake's been busy. Autumn sank into a chair, her face white as paper. How long have you 2 known? I've been married to him for 5 years. Found out about the affairs last week. I've been seeing him for 8 months. Found out about Serafina 3 months ago. Autumn's voice was barely a whisper. We've been together for 6 months. He said he loved me. Said we were going to move in together after Christmas. The room fell silent except for the sound of Autumn crying. 3 women, 3 different timelines, 3 sets of promises that meant nothing. There's more, I said gently. Blake's been stealing money. Lots of it. From me, from his company. The FBI is involved now. Autumn looked up, tears streaming down her face. The money he's been spending on me? Stolen, Vivian confirmed. All of it. Autumn buried her face in her hands. Oh God. I'm dating a criminal. That's when my phone rang. Blake's name flashed on the screen. The 3 of us stared at it like it was a bomb about to explode. Answer it, Autumn whispered. I want to hear what he says. Hey babe. Blake's voice filled Autumn's living room through the speakerphone. Just wanted to check in. Miss you. Have you ever heard someone lie so smoothly it made your skin crawl? Blake sounded exactly like the man I'd fallen in love with years ago. Warm, caring, completely believable. Miss you too, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. How's your work emergency? Complicated. Might have to stay out of town another day or 2. A pause. Listen, I've been thinking about us lately. About our future. Vivian's eyes widened. Autumn covered her mouth with her hand. What about our future? I asked. I think it's time we took the next step. Maybe started that family we've been talking about. The cruel irony hit me like a truck. While his pregnant mistress sat 3 feet away from me, Blake was discussing having children with his wife. That sounds wonderful, I managed. I love you, Sarah. More than anything. You know that, right? I know, I whispered. After I hung up, the 3 of us sat in stunned silence. Finally, Autumn spoke. He just called me 2 hours ago and said the exact same thing. About taking the next step. About our future. He told me that last week, Vivian added. Right before he found out about the baby. I stood up, pacing around Autumn's small living room. He's playing all of us. Even now, when his world is falling apart, he's still lying to everyone. So, what do we do? Autumn asked. We end this, I said firmly. Tonight. All of us together. Vivian struggled to her feet, one hand on her belly. What did you have in mind? Blake's at the Marriott. Room 412. The same room where this all started. I looked at both of them. I say we pay him a visit. All 3 of us? Autumn's voice shook. All 3 of us. Let him try to lie his way out of this when he's looking at all his victims at once. We drove to the hotel in my car, 3 women united by betrayal and rage. None of us spoke during the 15-minute drive. What was there to say? In the elevator, Autumn suddenly grabbed my arm. What if he gets violent? What if he won't, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. The Blake I'd married wouldn't hurt anyone. But then again, the Blake I'd married wouldn't have stolen $67,000 and lied to 3 women for months. Room 412. The same number I'd seen on the keycard in Blake's wallet. I knocked on the door while Vivian and Autumn flanked me on either side. Room service, I called out. The door opened, and Blake's face went from confusion to recognition to absolute terror in about 3 seconds. Hello, honey, I said sweetly. We need to talk. Ever seen a grown man have a complete breakdown? It's not pretty. Blake tried to close the door, but I was already pushing past him into the hotel room. Vivian and Autumn followed behind me like an army of betrayed women seeking justice. Sarah, what are you? How did you? Blake stammered, backing toward the window like a cornered animal. Sit down, I commanded. All your lies are about to catch up with you. He sank onto the bed, his face gray with panic. I can explain everything. Explain what? Vivian stepped forward, her hands on her hips. Explain how you told me you were divorced? Or explain how you told me you were single? Autumn's voice was getting stronger, angrier. Explain how you've been playing house with 3 different women? Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. For once in his life, the smooth talker had nothing to say. We know about the money, I continued. The forgery, the accounts you emptied. The FBI knows too, Blake. It's over. That's when he broke completely. You don't understand, he sobbed. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened. One thing led to another, and then I was in too deep to get out. Too deep. Vivian laughed bitterly. You're having a baby with me while married to her and dating someone else. How much deeper could you possibly get? Blake buried his face in his hands. The money wasn't supposed to be permanent. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time to figure everything out. Figure what out? I demanded. How to leave without losing everything. How to start over without going to prison. He looked up at us with red, desperate eyes. I love all of you. In different ways, but I do. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. But we did get hurt, Autumn said quietly. All of us. That's when Blake's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and went white. Who is it? I asked. My lawyer, he whispered. The company filed charges this afternoon. Wire fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. His voice broke. They're issuing a warrant for my arrest. The room went dead silent. Even I hadn't expected things to move this fast. Blake stood up suddenly, his movements erratic and panicked. I have to go. I have to get out of here before. Before what? Vivian asked. Before you face the consequences of what you've done? You don't understand, Blake shouted, and for the first time, I saw real desperation in his eyes. They want to put me away for 15 years. 15 years of my life gone because I made some mistakes with money. Mistakes? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You stole from your wife, lied to 3 women, committed multiple felonies, and you call them mistakes. Blake was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. I need money.
Cash.
Enough to disappear for a while until I can figure this out. Figure what out? Autumn asked. How to fix this? How to make it right? He stopped pacing and looked directly at me. Sarah, you have to help me. We're married. You can't testify against me. Spousal privilege. I stared at my husband, this stranger who'd been sharing my bed for 5 years, and felt absolutely nothing. No, I said simply. No. I'm not helping you. None of us are. You made your choices, Blake. Now live with them. That's when we heard the sirens in the distance, getting closer. Have you ever watched someone you once loved completely lose their mind? Blake's face twisted into something I didn't recognize as the police sirens grew louder. This is your fault, he snarled, pointing at me. All of this is your fault. If you'd just been a better wife, if you'd given me what I needed, none of this would have happened. What I needed? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What about what I needed? Honesty? Faithfulness? A husband who didn't steal my inheritance. The sirens were right outside now. Blake ran to the window and looked down at the parking lot. 3 police cars, lights flashing. They're here, he whispered. Good, Vivian said firmly. It's time to face what you've done. But Blake wasn't listening anymore. He was moving frantically around the room, shoving things into a duffel bag. I'm not going to prison. I won't survive in there. Blake, stop, Autumn pleaded. Running will only make it worse. Worse? How could it possibly get worse? He zipped up the bag and headed toward the door. My life is over. My career is over. Everything I worked for is gone. I stepped in front of the door. You're not leaving. Get out of my way, Sarah. No. For a moment, we stared at each other. The man I'd promised to love and honor, and me, the woman whose trust he'd destroyed completely. Please, he said, and for just a second, I saw the Blake I'd fallen in love with. Vulnerable.
Scared. Human.
I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I can't go to prison. Please. Part of me wanted to step aside. Part of me still remembered our wedding day, our first kiss, the morning he'd brought me coffee in bed and told me I was beautiful. 5 years of marriage don't disappear overnight, even when they're built on lies. But then I thought about the towel, the lipstick stain that had started this whole nightmare. The moment I'd realized that everything I'd believed about my life was false. I'm sorry, Blake, I said quietly, but I can't save you from this. The pounding on the door was deafening now. Police. Open up. Blake looked around the room wildly, then grabbed Autumn by the arm. You're coming with me.
What?
No. Autumn tried to pull away, but Blake's grip was too tight. "You're my insurance policy," he said, dragging her toward the bathroom. "They won't do anything stupid if I have a hostage." That's when I realized my husband wasn't just a liar and a thief. He was dangerous. What would you do if the person you once loved most in the world threatened an innocent woman? The answer came to me without hesitation. I lunged at Blake, grabbing his arm and twisting until he let go of Autumn. "Run!" I screamed. Autumn stumbled toward the door while Vivian called out to the police. "He's in here. He has a hostage." Blake spun around, his face twisted with rage. "You ruined everything," he shouted, shoving me hard against the wall. The door exploded open just as I hit the floor. 3 officers rushed in with their weapons drawn, shouting commands. Blake raised his hands immediately, the fight going out of him like air from a punctured balloon. "Don't shoot," he whispered. "Please don't shoot." 20 minutes later, I stood in the hotel parking lot watching my husband get loaded into the back of a police car. 5 years of marriage ending with handcuffs and Miranda rights. "You okay?" Detective Morrison asked me. She was the lead investigator on Blake's financial crimes case, and she'd been surprisingly kind considering the circumstances. "I think so," I said, though I wasn't sure what okay meant anymore. "He's looking at serious time. The forgery alone is a felony, plus the embezzlement, the fraud charges from his company." She closed her notebook. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Collins. All 3 of you." Vivian and Autumn stood beside me, 3 women who'd been enemies 12 hours ago, and were now something like friends. Or at least allies in survival. "What happens now?" Autumn asked. "Now we rebuild," I said simply. "All of us." 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office overlooking downtown Denver. Collins Marketing Consulting, my own company, built with the money I'd recovered from Blake's accounts and a small business loan I'd qualified for on my own. My first client had been unexpected, Vivian Sterling, who needed help rebranding herself after leaving Blake's company. She'd had a healthy baby girl and was raising her as a single mother, having decided she was better off without Blake in their lives. My second client was even more surprising, a nonprofit organization that helped women recover from financial abuse. Autumn Martinez had started it after realizing how many women were trapped in situations like ours, unable to leave because their partners controlled all the money. Blake was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. I attended every day of his trial, not because I still loved him, but because I needed to see justice served. When the judge read the verdict, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Closure. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I kept the house, the car, and my maiden name. I also kept something more important: my sense of self-worth. Do you know what I learned from all of this? That sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Blake's betrayal didn't destroy me. It revealed who I really was underneath all those years of being the perfect wife. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, braver than I'd ever needed to be, and more capable of building a life on my own terms than I'd ever dreamed possible. Last week, I got a letter from Blake in prison. He wanted to apologize, to explain, to somehow make things right between us. I read it once, then threw it away without responding. Some chapters of your life deserve to stay closed. But new chapters? New chapters are worth writing. And mine was just getting started.